Hello YouTube, this is Corbin22 here, back with another 100-point squadron build for Star Wars X-Wing Miniatures. Tonight we're looking at 4 ships of the Rebel Alliance, one of each of the Rebels' most well-known starfighters. We have the Incom T-65 X-Wing, piloted by a Red Squadron pilot. We have a RZ-1 A-Wing Interceptor, piloted by a Green Squadron pilot. And then we have a Koyansar BTL Y-Wing fighter, piloted by a Gold Squadron pilot. And then we have a B-Wing Heavy Assault Fighter, piloted by a Blue Squadron pilot. There really is no emphasis behind this build. It's really just built it for nostalgia's purpose. All the ships, they're all common pilots, but the Green and Red Squadron pilots are more like they're more skilled than the Gold and Blue Squadron pilots. So there really is no synergy involved. I just kind of put this build together just for the hell of it. But it still has its own. It still has its uses in the battlefield. So with that said, let's look at the build itself. Pretty simple. 4 ships, each of different classes: heavy assault, fighter bomber, interceptor, and multi-purpose craft. Each of them have their own upgrades to help help with the increase their maximum performance in battle. So we'll start with the smallest ship of the build here. And that is a Green Squadron pilot. He has a pilot skill of 3. He flies the RZ-1 A-Wing Interceptor. He has an attack value of 2, an agility value of 3, a hull value of 2, and a shield value of 2. He can take on the Focus, Lock-On, Boost, and Evade actions. He costs 19 squadron points, and he's able to take on an elite pilot skill upgrade and a missile upgrade. Because he is a common pilot, there's no abilities, but he can take an elite pilot skill, which is pretty rare among common pilots. For his upgrades, I've chosen to give him, for his elite pilot skill, I've chosen to give him Outmaneuver, which states, when attacking a ship inside your firing arc, if you are not inside that ship's firing arc, reduce its maximum agility value by 1 to a minimum of 0. So this turns the Green Squadron pilot to a bomber and heavy ship killer, because most heavy ships have agility value of 1 or 0, and bombers, most heavy bombers have an agility value of 2 or 1, so this pretty much almost guarantees a direct hit from the Green Squadron pilot. Even more deadly if you're at range 1. And since the Green Squadron pilot has lots of green maneuvers, if you do like a K-turn, getting rid of the stress won't be much of a problem. And then for his missile, I've chosen to go with the classic, which is the Chardaan Refit, which has negative squadron point cost of 2, so it reduces, in exchange for taking off missile capabilities, the A-Wing is lighter and costs less to deploy, which is awesome. Probably the best card that Fantasy Flight has ever conceived for the A-Wing. Too bad it can't be used for every single ship, otherwise, but then again, it would be a bit OP if that was the case. Now I'll move on to the multi-role fighter, which is the Red Squadron pilot. He has a pilot skill of 4. He flies the Incom T-65 X-Wing. He has an attack value of 3, an agility value of 2, a hull value of 3, and a shield value of 2. He can take on the Focus and Lock-On actions. He costs 23 squadron points, and he's able to take on a Proton, a Warhead upgrade, and an Astromech upgrade. Again, he's a common pilot, so no abilities for him, but he does have a he has the highest pilot skill out of this build of these ships. So this means he'll go last and attack first, move last and attack first. Now for his upgrades, again keeping it simple, I've gone with one of my personal favorites, the Flechette Torpedoes, which have an attack value of 3, can be used at range 2 to 3, and it states, discard this card and spend your target lock to perform this attack. If after you perform this attack, the defender receives 1 stress token if its hull value is 4 or lower. So for a cost of 2, you're able to deal a decent amount of damage from a greater distance, and you deal stress to the opponent if their hull value is 4 or lower. So basically what that means is if their hull value starts out as 4 or lower, or if you deal damage that brings them down to 4 or lower, then they get a stress token. This is really especially useful against pretty much almost every TIE fighter out there, because they all have hull values of 3, and it doesn't matter if they have any shields or not. If their hull value is 4 or lower, they will receive a stress. I would probably save, if for larger ships, I would save the Flechettes until they got like maybe 6 or 5 hull points left, because then that way if you get at least 1 hit, then yeah, their hull will go down to 4, and then they'll get that stress token. And for his Astromech, I've gone with Wedge Antilles' Astromech, which is R5D8. which states action, roll 1 defense dice. On evade or focus result, discard one of your face down damage cards. So R5D8 is pretty much a lesser version of R2D2. R2D2 states that if you make a green maneuver, you can recover 1 shield up to your shield value. With R5D8, as long as you use them in the action phase, you can roll your defense dice, and on a hit or a focus result, you can discard one of your face down cards. So this guy is good for keeping the X-wing in the battle. And you have a pretty good chance of scoring a hit or a evade or focus result, because that's what most of the results are on the evade dice. So yeah, with R5 you got a pretty good chance of repairing your hull, as long as you do it during the action phase. That's the only downside. So if you choose, this will pretty much act as your third action. And but yeah, if you're like at 1 hull point and if you keep using R5D8, chances are you'll stay in the fight long enough to get a glancing blow at your enemy before you go down. Now I move on to the heavier ships. We'll start with the Fire Bomber, and he is a Gold Squadron pilot. He has a pilot skill of 2. He flies the Quansar BTL Y-Wing fighter. He has an attack value of 2, an agility value of 1, a hull value of 5, and a shield value of 3. He can take on the focus and lock-on actions, cost 18 squadron points. It's a fairly cheap ship. He's able to take on a turret upgrade, 2 warhead upgrades, and an Astromech upgrade. Common pilot, so again, no abilities, but he can take a fair amount of upgrades to compensate for that. And for his upgrades, his first upgrade, his first warhead, I've chosen to give him some standard Proton Torpedoes, because he'll be doing most of the heavy damage in this build. He has an attack value 4, can be used at range 2 to 3, so he'll probably combine his attack with the X-Wings. It states, spend your target lock and discard this card to perform this attack. You may change one of your focus results to a critical hit result. So as long as you get at least 1 focus when using torpedoes, it will turn to a critical. And if you have any other hits before that, then the hits will be canceled before the critical, which is awesome. And then for an extra buff, I've given him extra munitions for his second warhead slot, which states, when you equip this card, place 1 ordnance token on each equipped warhead, missile, and bomb upgrade card. When you are instructed to discard an upgrade card, you may instead discard 1 ordnance token on that card instead. So for an extra 2 points, the Y-Wing is able to take 2 Proton Torpedoes, so to speak. So rather than paying the full cost, this kind of cuts the cost in half for the second torpedo, which is pretty good if you're fielding a ship that can take lots and lots of upgrades, like the K-Wing or the TIE Punisher. But it also has its uses for the Y-Wings and the B-Wings and the TIE Bombers as well. For his Astromech, I've chosen to give him a standard R2 Astromech, which states you may treat all 1 and 2 speed maneuvers as green maneuvers. So the Y-Wing only has its straight ahead 1 and straight ahead 2 maneuvers. With the R2 Astromech, it turns all of its speed 1 and 2 maneuvers into green maneuvers, so that's pretty handy when you're getting rid of stress. Say if you go through a debris field or you do a K-turn at speed 4. And then you can do a soft 1 straight ahead 1, or a soft right, a soft bank or straight ahead 1, or a hard 2, soft 2, and a straight ahead 2 to get rid of the stress, which is great. Now we move on to the heavy assault ship, and that is a blue squadron piloted by a blue squadron pilot. He has a pilot skill of 2. He flies the B-Wing heavy assault fighter. He has an attack value of 3, an agility value of 1, a hull value of 3, and a shield value of 5. So pretty much the reverse of the Y-Wing, except for attack power. It can take on the focus, lock-on, and barrel roll upgrade actions. Cost 22 squadron points, and is able to take on assistance upgrade, a cannon upgrade, and 2 warheads. Again, common pilot, so no up ability, but like the Y-Wing, it can take a fair amount of upgrades to make up for that. And for this one, I was only able to field 2 upgrades. Specifically, for his first warhead, the Plasma Torpedoes. They have an attack value of 4, can be used at range 2 to 3, and they state, spend your target lock and discard this card to perform this attack. If this attack hits, after dealing damage, remove 1 shield token from the defender. So, with the Plasma Torpedoes, if I'm reading this correctly, if the Plasma Torpedoes hit the shields of a heavy ship, and they still have shields left after dealing damage, then the Plasma Torpedoes allows you to remove 1 extra shield token from the defender. So this is pretty good at whittling away at shields of heavier ships like the Shuttle, or the Slave 1, or the VT-49, or the Houndstooth. and because it chips away at that one extra shield that could potentially save it from another direct hit from any other craft. And to ensure that it has a second shot, again, like with the Y-Wing, I've also given it extra munitions, which will allow him to take a second plasma torpedo at half the cost, pretty much, so to speak. And, yeah, so I didn't really think of a build for this, a name for this build. I'm going to call this, I'm going to call this, red, gold, green, blue. My red, gold, green, blue build. Yeah, because, yeah, I'll call it my red, gold, green, and blue build. Mainly because, you know, they're all ships of different squadrons. All the squadrons well known in the Star Wars meta. Its advantages, the heavy assault fighters will the bomber and heavy assault fighter will go first because they have the lower pilot, or will move first because they have the lower attack, or the lower pilot skill. Then, of course, the Green Squadron and Red Squadron pilot will go next. They will attack first, and then, of course, with the Green Squadron pilot, as long as he can probably do a K-turn 3 or 5 to get behind his enemy. And then, of course, with Outmaneuver, and if he's attacking at range 1, will do extra damage to the enemy. The Red Squadron pilot has a chance to deal stress thanks to his Flechettes, and R5-D8 will ensure that he'll stay in the battle long enough to continue fighting. And then, of course, we move on to the heavy assault fighters, the Gold and Blue Squadron pilot. I'd probably would go with the blue attack with the Blue Squadron pilot first, to whittle away at the enemy's shields with the plasma torpedoes, and then have the Gold Squadron pilot attack with Proton torpedoes for some extra added damage, and then, of course, attacking at range 1 will grant them that extra attack buff with their primary weapons. And, of course, with the R2 Astromech, the Y-Wing is able to make a K-turn or any other red maneuver, and then, of course, use all of its speed 1 and 2 maneuvers to get rid of that stress, as well as stay on the opponent's tail. Weaknesses, fairly obvious. A-Wing is known for its speed and agility. Attack value is decent. It has dismal shields and dismal hull, so only 4 hits and it's down. The same can be said for the X-Wing, but it's slightly better off thanks to the R5-D8 Astro Droid. But, yeah, 3 attack and 3 hull, and 2 agility and 2 shields, so it can dish out a decent amount of attack, has decent agility, but its hull and shield are pretty fragile as well. Gold Squadron and Blue Squadron pilot, their agility suffers greatly because they're heavier ships. They have a fair amount of upgrades to make up for that and attack at long distance while still remaining at a long enough range for them to gain that agility bonus. However, the Gold Squadron pilot is more prone to critical hits because its hull value is greater than its shield value, while the B-Wing has a greater shield value than hull value, so it'll be better at absorbing criticals. But that being said, once its shields are down, then it can only take an extra 3 more hits before it goes down. With the Y-Wing, yeah, I'd say these two are also the low pilot skill, which will mean that they attack last. So they have a good chance of getting destroyed first before they can make their attacks. Anyway, yeah, this is my red, gold, green, blue build. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Any constructive criticism is greatly appreciated. If you like, you may use this build for any competitive or casual play, or if you want, you can tweak it or revamp it to your own specifications. Thank you guys so much for watching. This is Corbin22, signing off.